Mortgage madness, can't you see? Living free and cheap for me. Interest climbing like a tree. Paying dues to destiny. Bright neon dreams in every room.
Hello and welcome to the Mic'd Up Show, Season 4, where every mortgage has a story. The Mic'd Up Show is the ultimate hub where hidden stories behind the mortgage industry come to life. So I'm Michael Kelleher.
And I'm Michael Zhao.
And in every episode, we dive deep into the entrepreneurial spirit. And our guest today, John Overfeld, at one time, large leader of loan officers for a larger brand, had that entrepreneurial itch to go out there with some partners. We'll hear about it, become owner of a growing, thriving mortgage company, now number one in Charlotte, North Carolina, in many ways. And we will dive into also strategic insights, which we get into today, and how he got there, and breakthrough innovations that build the world's greatest mortgage companies. So whether you're advancing your career or scouting for industry leaders like John, or exploring opportunities in fintech and prop tech and need some leader to help you get it off the ground, you're in the right place. So let's get ready to unlock the story behind every mortgage. Let's dive in here. And the company is American Security Mortgage Corp. They're in Charlotte, North Carolina. And it is a great story about John being what I think the industry attracts itself to, which is producing manager, producing, what would you call it, regional manager, producing operator. They're becoming rarer and rarer as people try to go into more scalable positions, but John has been able to do it at the highest of levels. John, was there an oath, like a certain amount of years that you and your partners would all agree to be producing, or is that part of the mission statement going in? What was that room like when you all sat down and made the rules of how you were going to build the company? Can you take us through that?
Yeah, so I actually bought into American Security. And American Security was started 25 years ago by my man with the name of Phil Mahoney and Jim Abbott. Phil ran mergers and acquisitions for Wells Fargo, and Jim was the president of Wachovia First Union. And so they had known each other for a while. As they got older and older, they wanted to keep the company going. And so a friend of mine bought into ownership and then called me and said, "Hey, I need help. I can't do this by myself. Will you come over here and help me with the sales side of it?" So he bought in, then I bought in. So then it became, there's four of us that do it. But the entire time, the premise of the company that pretty much led by Phil and Jim was super thin margins, no management. So you had owners and loan officers, and then put the power into the hands of the people, being the loan officers. So when I was at guaranteed rate before I came over here, and when I started to hear the story, I'm always looking like, all right, where's the industry going? And the irony of it was like, oh my God, these guys have already kind of laid the groundwork of where I think the business is heading, right? I could see it from, I could just envision, like, they had the same vision I had, that ultimately, if you were going to be, call it a boutique lender, a smaller lender in a big town, that's probably how you're going to operate. And I thought this was, 4 years ago, which I'm not always right. I got plenty of predictions that never went right. But what I thought was going to happen 4 years ago is that the mortgage business was going to break up. You're going to have the banks, and the banks are going to take care of their own people. They're going to focus on their own customer base and kind of isolate themselves from everything else. You are going to have the IMBs and the brokers who would focus on relationship building, local level lending. And then you're going to have the online lenders that were going to take up all the easy deals All right, and that's how I thought the business was going to split up, and it's really kind of turned out that way. If you look at the banks, they've retreated to specifically focusing in on their customer base or portfolio products, and being at an IMB and I'm going to throw the brokers in there too. We handle relationship-based business. I would say more than anything. So Phil had already kind of built that vision out. We just came in and tried to keep it going and add on the fringes of where we thought we could make it better based on experience and honestly just having the energy to do it.
John, that's interesting with your story. When before you bought into your ownership, what can I ask you? What kind of productivity or in units or volume were you doing or averaging for you to say, you know what, I'm a producer, but I want to be an owner? There's a lot of producers that are out there right now that think that they can be an owner. Some of them should, some of them shouldn't actually. So what kind of volume were you doing to say, okay, this is something I think we could do?
What was American Security doing, or what was I doing?
Your personal production. What was your?
Yeah, so I had by that time. Well, let me back up. So I got in the business as a producer, and I worked at GMAC Mortgage. And first 2 years in the business, I struggled. After the first two, and I tell everybody this story, I think I quit 3 times in my mind before I got going. Okay, so after I got going, I was, President's Club, top in the region for a number of years. And then I jumped into a sales manager role. And then I jumped into a market manager role. And then GMAC went out of business in the bust. I then went to Wells Fargo. And when I went to Wells Fargo, I had to start over. I came in as a loan officer. And so that was the first time I ever had to take like 2 steps back in my career. I'd worked my way up, and then it went to 0. Went to Wells Fargo, built up my branch, and it went from, call it 0 to 300 million in 5 years. And that was 2009 through 2013-ish timeframe. It was right after the bust. And stayed with Wells Fargo for a while up until I went to G-Rate. So at some point in time, Wells, I can't remember what year it was, maybe 14 or 15, they came to all the managers and said, you can't produce anymore. You have either you're a leader or you're out. So I stayed on the career path because I'd already built up my team. When I left Wells, I jumped over to Guaranteed Rate as a regional, and I started producing again. Guaranteed Rate, or I'll say Rate. Rate didn't care at the time, right? So I was doing production at that time. What I would say, I don't think you have to do a certain amount of business to be in ownership. I do think it helps knowing all aspects of the business. What I do think that you have to have your arms around on the ownership side is, it's really weird. Like when I worked at Rate, you had to be really, really good at one specific thing, and that specific role, it was recruiting. They really didn't care about this and they didn't care about that. You had to function in one lane. When you jump over to the ownership side, you almost go all the way back to being a sales manager or a branch manager, because you have to be able to do it all if you're at a small company. You got to understand how the loan flows, how it moves through the back end, what the LO needs, pricing, products. You have to be able to do it all. So I'm almost like a super branch manager now. That's honestly what I feel like. I'm doing pricing exceptions. I might jump in to help get a loan closed. I got another product. So I think if you're going on the ownership side, for a smaller company, you got to know how to do it all.
So when you're a producing owner, which is very obviously unique in a way, when you go to these conferences, do you find there's a lot of other producing owners, or are you more, they're telling you war stories from 5, 10, 15 years ago, and you're saying things have changed or haven't changed since?
I think there's a mix. I mean, especially on the broker side now. I've had some friends that, and we're an IMB, right? I think you see more of it on the broker side than you see on the IMB side. It's hard, but I don't want to paint a picture, Mike, that I can do this. You know, we'll close about 1.4 billion this year with 63-ish, 65-ish loan officers. I produce enough just to keep my feet wet. There's no way I could do it at scale of what I used to close. You know, when I was closing, 20 loans a month, you can't do it. There's not enough time in the day. It would be impossible. You know, I do just enough so I know what the sales team goes through. I know how the tech stack works, and I know what the consumer's like. Does that give me an advantage? 1,000%. I know what the consumer's like. I will say sometimes these conferences when these guys are talking, they're saying this or that. I'm like, man, the consumer's not like that anymore. They are way different. The consumer now is what I call the Amazon / COVIDized. They're very isolated. They're very narrow. They're very focused. They're equipped with all the information. And what you have to do now is you kind of cobble that together and give them a pathway. Not when I was really, really whipping, doing a ton of business, I was the gatekeeper to the information. I laid it all out for them. And those days are over. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you go and tell the originators or even other branch managers? Because the customer right now has information buffet. They're hungry for information, but they got all these choices. And they don't know what to choose. Actually, you can have information buffet where you have all these choices, but then you really need the originator to lead them. And the last year and a half, 2 years have been really about other originators trying to figure out how to just survive and make the ends meet. Even IMBs are trying to figure that out at certain periods. So how do you lead the consumer to say, this is all the information you have, but actually, let me break it down. You don't even know what you want. Let me tell you what you think you need, not what you think you want.
Yeah, I think a trap that I see a lot of originators fall into is when the consumer dumps all the information on them that they know, the originator gets defensive and says, "Well, you're wrong," which they may be wrong, but the people buy with emotion. So the minute you say you're wrong, you're pretty much just calling them a liar. What you got to you got to do is you got to take that information. You have to paint a picture of it, and then you have to give it back to them with options. Like, hey, Mike, I appreciate you've got that estimate and that the rate's 4.2. Let me tell you how this is how a closing estimate works. Let's compare some other options. Maybe you don't want to pay that much in closing costs because on this one, it's, 5 points. Here's a different. What is your goal, right? It's got to be more, I'll call it Dave Savage consultative along the way without alienating them or calling them, or maybe not calling them, but giving them the idea that they don't know what they're talking about.
What do you think is the secret sauce still the math, or is it the helping them? I say math, and I know I'm not being fair because it's as qualitative as it is quantitative. What are your goals in life? Where do you want to be? Are you having kids? But when I originated, my differentiator was ultimately learn that, compute it better, and get it back. Like, oh, maybe you should stay in a 24-year mortgage, right? You got 24 left. Well, let's figure out a way to make that work and so. Or is it the ability to handhold and just not have to deal with the stress and get it to close? What's the bigger threat, I guess, for disruption?
I think the best originators are able to, they're good listeners and they're able to connect with the consumer quickly. Forward, family, occupation, recreation, dreams. So when the customer starts going down, the customer is going to tell you, let's say I'm talking to an engineer. First thing he's going to do is dump all the numbers on me, right? Last thing you want to do is just go, guns blazing, quoting rates and different scenarios with them. you got to try to find some common ground and then back up and go to the numbers. I mean, ultimately, an engineer type person is going to want the numbers, but you got the really, really good originators I see are able to find some type of connection with the customer some way, somehow.
This episode is about growth, and my experience of growth, not only with myself but with the kids, is there's some discomfort that's involved, right? Growing pains as we know them. So what are the types of growing pains that you think that you have not seen at the retail level that need to be seen, but maybe as an industry we're sticking our head in the sand, and we're just like, we need to grow, but we're sticking our head in the sand to avoid this discomfort, whether it's like redoing the P&L, or hey, we need to change the technology, or change our marketing to actually we need to go back to grassroots making phone calls again. What do you think is the discomfort that either originators or leaders need to experience that we don't yet see as much of, so that we can figure out, hey, this is the growth pattern that you have seen and experienced in success, and it wasn't comfortable at the time, but this is what I think works.
Yeah, so I'll break it down into a couple different ones. I'll start off with the LO. So I think with the LO, with the way technology and information's going, for a period of time in the mortgage world, you could survive as the LO as what I call a technician. You were really, really good at putting a deal together, and you could be like a loan doctor. You could solve deals that somebody else couldn't do. With what's coming out now with AI and being able to look up underwriting guidelines quickly and all the different engines that'll break down information, I think the next step's going to be you're going to have to become a marketing machine. People are going to have to know who you are, what you do 24/7. I think the second part of it is kind of what I was talking about before. Old school sales skills are going to become really, really important. Do you know how to overcome objections? How fast can you connect with the customer to gain the trust? Like Zig Ziglar type stuff. I don't see that anymore. Companies don't train on old school sales techniques. I think all that's coming back in style. I think from a maybe a organizational view, I think your mid-level managers, if they're not producing you income, do you need them anymore? And I'm not saying you don't need mid-level managers, but there's got to be some type of accountability there that to make sure, like if you're paying them as an owner, are you getting what you're paying for? I'm not sure that some of the organizations have had those conversations. I think as a company, it is, are you willing to have hard conversations? Are you willing to admit you don't know, you don't understand this facet of the business and get help with it, and not just rely on, well, this is the way we have always done it. Like a hard conversation that's coming, and this won't be popular, but it's true. As the AI starts getting more and more involved and more, and gets better and better, forget AI, I'll just say the tech. If you've paid for all that tech and you're not willing to move some people around your organization, then you just double the cost for nothing. And I see a lot of people will take on a new tech stack or take on a new shiny toy, but they're not willing to make the hard decisions to, replace what that technology does.
Yeah, I love that. As a technologist advising, I think the biggest piece that mortgage companies miss is they're a sales company first, right? Or they're in the business of what they want to call it, sales or advising, and that's what they need to do. And I think AI is going to disrupt in the ability to use AI to code and make new software. So while lenders today muddle around with technology, the ones that just go out and sell, a lot of people are going to be working on stuff for no reason, because in 4 or 5 years, you're going to be able to build it in about an hour if you have the right team. So I think that's where the industry is a little caught up in how do we use AI for operations better today, where it's really go out and sell, pick your head back up in 4 years and AI can build almost anything. I think one of the things that'll change, John, and then before we go to a break here, pointing out what you said, and you had it on one of your posts, and we actually had another guest, Rich from Princeton, that talks a lot about it. But transparent pricing and margins, you've been pushing it, and I feel like you can only push it if your margins and pricing are some of the lowest, like both of yours are. That to me is what's moving, enforcing the middle managers out, not the top saying we don't need you down, but almost from the ground up saying, in order to keep this model going, I'm going to be selling a higher rate. Where can I go find a place like your company, John, where they just tell me how it is and I can start again from the beginning? Did you find somebody had to go first or go with you to start this transparent? Was it almost one of those like kind of codes or locker room code of ethics, not code of ethics, but locker room loyalty things? Like nobody goes with the transparent line until somebody finally breaks it, and now people are starting to talk about it?
Honest to God, I'd love to take credit for the transparent pricing. How the transparent pricing started at American Security, and this is true, and it has a very meager beginning. Phil did transparent pricing when he started the company from day one because he got tired of hearing LOs complain about pricing. He's like, that's it, man. He set it up and said, this is as lean as we can run the company. And the rate is what it is. And to this day, we've never ever changed the margins. Now the buckets so our margins work like this. The margins go up as the loan size goes down, because the cost to produce a loan is X, right? A $200,000 loan costs you just as much to manufacture as a $500,000 one. So Phil set that up. I just saw, I knew that's where the business was going, and he was already there. I just was going to amplify it. And because it comes down to, it is what it is. I have to make money. We want the loan officers to make money. So it's a partnership. And I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't.
That's internal. I would say for those on the outside listeners here that maybe aren't familiar with our industry, there would be the ability as a loan officer to think you know the pricing because you could look at a rate sheet. But then you find out later on that the pricing of the place that you're buying it from has built in guidelines, MIPS, BIPS, and whatever you would like to call them. And even if somebody was transparent with you on your recruiting visit, it seemed like there was a code that we're not going to put it out there on LinkedIn and social media on how we do it. And then somebody finally broke the levee. And if you go around and you're a loan officer, you can really find some great companies like John's that will tell you, just follow him, and then give you a better idea, an inkling of what true transparent pricing is. And I think that's going to be a catalyst for change, because you're not going to be able to compete unless you start publishing your transparent pricing.
Yeah, and I think more and more companies are starting to do that, and I think that's good for the business. I don't think like some of the big companies do it maliciously. I just think they have so many other factors that go into the cost of a loan. It's hard for them to articulate it to a salesperson, because then the loan officer doesn't care. Loan officers they're like racehorses. You put blinders on them, you let them run, and they don't want to see any other distractions. Because I know when I'm recruiting, I can sometimes tell them, like, well, here's why transparent pricing is important. They start to glare over. All they care is, what's the rate? Where am I at? Can I do it? And then others are like, hey, I like that this is a partnership. I like that I don't have to second guess it. I like that I don't have to worry about what it is. What the transparent pricing really does, and where I think it will end at the end of the day, it will just create more consistency. That's what it does for us. Like, are our rates aggressive? Yes. Do we lose deals to rates? Every day. Like, if Bank of America is the biggest bank in Charlotte. If they want to take me to the woodshed, they take me to the woodshed. There's nothing I can do about it. State Employees Credit Union is the biggest lender in North Carolina. They have a 10% market share. They have 100% financing on like a 5.5% ARM today. I can't do anything with that, right? So am I going to lose to them? Yeah. But if it's If it's a big IMB, if it's a mid-size IMB, if it's a broker, I can go toe-to-toe with them all day long. It just is what it is.
And strength in numbers. I know Mike has a question he's dying to ask, but let's show you some help that you can get here at our commercial break halfway point, and Mike's got some good questions on the other side. Want to take your business to the next level? As a longtime trusted mortgage service provider, Mortgage Connect works with some of the largest lenders, servicers, and institutional investors, providing cutting-edge solutions for everything from title, closing, escrow, and default to capital markets and risk solutions. Mortgage Connect brings it all to the table, redefining mortgage lending with innovative digital solutions that can elevate your bottom line.
It's time to use AI to revolutionize the way you do marketing in 2025. With ADM Intelligence, we have access to 5,000 consumer data points and proprietary AI technology that helps you understand who is in your database, what's the likelihood of people to do a real estate transaction, and also who they are. So for example, someone who's 50% likely to transact the next 6 months, who's a first-time home buyer, should receive very different content than someone who is, let's say, not as likely to transact that already owns a home. And of course, our content team will provide you with all of that turnkey out of the box to market to everyone in your database. So to learn more, come find us at ICE. If you're there, we're booth number 327, or go to our website, thinkadm.com. Love to walk you through a custom demo of how AI can supercharge your marketing this year.
And another one of our sponsors, Flowify, will be making their commercial debut next week. So we want to thank our sponsors.
John, it's interesting you talk about AI and how and even how originators go and sell, that you need to put blinders on them like they're thoroughbred. And actually, if you compare AI to the actual originator, AI doesn't work unless you feed them information, and originators don't work until you feed them information. But when I look at those parallels, and I also look at how you have done your business, do you think that in order to create not only the transparency for pricing, but in order for originators to not only be successful in their business practice and also being an informed originator, do they need to know about like servicing costs, the cost to manufacture a loan? Hey, we took losses of $2,000 to $8,000 a year and a half ago, but this year we actually might turn a profit. Do you think the understanding of that helps the originator and actually informing ultimately the end user buyer of the money, so that they can be a more successful originator for themselves, so they can be that, if they're that well versed in the trade itself?
Yes and no. Like a super high level originator, I think no. We communicate that all the time of like, all right, this is what we're looking at, average cost per loan. So a high level producer, yes. Mid level, a little bit. Average producer, no. I mean, it just kind of depends on where they're at, where their mindset is. Like it's like when I look at producers, each one of them has a different type of skill set. Somebody could be really, like I was saying earlier, some could be really, really good at marketing. Some could be really, really good at putting them like a loan doctor, and some of them are like really, really good at running systems and following following specific activities. So it just kind of depends on where they're at in that mix, I would say. I do think the cost per loan is important. I don't know about the servicing cost or part of it, but the cost per loan is good to tell them, hey, this is where we're at. This is what we're doing. At a bigger company, it's probably harder to do that, I would say, just because they're changing frequently.
So then does that put you in a position for IMBs, whether you're on the East Coast or West Coast, and letting the originator know, hey, this is our cost to manufacture a loan? At that point, it's not even about pricing. It's not even about the manufacturing of the mortgage loan itself. It's about, hey, this is what we're going to do so that we can be your forever home for an extended period of time. Not just, hey, because every company is going to say we have X amount of pricing and X amount of great manufacturing or processing. So do you think that's a better recruiting tool?
I don't know. I think it doesn't hurt. I mean, when I use I mean, I use that tactic a lot, Michael, just because our cost to manufacture alone per Richie May is low compared to the who we're benchmarked against. And what I tell them is, if you can paint the picture, I guess is the answer. I tell them, hey, our cost to manufacture alone is X. The industry average is this. What does this mean for you? I can offer a lower margin than the next guy can. Now also tell them, interest rates are very, very important. I can provide the same level of service as somebody else. Are they going to go with me because my service is just as good as the guy next door if my rate's a quarter higher? Answer is no, not in the markets I'm in. The however is if so a lot of these originators, I'm getting ready to run that some out of a rabbit hole here. They have to be good enough to get the leads in. Lower rates are only going to help you convert. They're not going to make the phone ring. And a lot of times when you're recruiting, that's the person that has a lead problem only hears rate. I can't fix your lead problem. I can fix your conversion problem.
One way to get away from rates is to own your zip code and start acting different, like different brands out there. That's where I get a little bit frustrated. Lenders don't look outside and see what other hip brands are doing. And you touched on it in a great way, John, on one of your LinkedIn posts on why events work. They transform your sales approach. You said they address the connection paradox, which I was hinting at. They apply your network effect because I'm guessing you're going to talk about this, but you can use social media to amplify it. And they also drive self-accountability. As somebody who throws events, there's no bigger self-accountability than that final day where you're hoping people show up, so you give it a little extra push. I don't think enough people touch on events. That's why I was saying it. And I think there are other brands out there that do events great. And especially if you want to own your zip code or own your region or own a luxury type deal, can you talk about why you posted that event? I think you were having one. And then if you got any responses from that post.
Yeah, I'll take you down two paths with that. So I had a major vendor get on a call about a couple days ago with American Security. So one thing, let me back up. One thing we do at American Security that's different than like a bigger company is we pay the loan officers above average commissions with very, very low rates. However, I don't have a marketing department. Do we have marketing? Yes, but I don't have a person you can call and get something done for you. I don't have like MMI that I give to every LO or to give to any LOs. If they want that type of stuff, they have to buy it, right? So when a vendor comes to me and says, man, I got this awesome shiny tool, I put it in front of the sales team and they decide if they want it or not. So I had this vendor come on a couple days ago and I had 30 people on the call. 3 people said they were interested. The vendor called me and said, I can't believe only 3 people want this product, which I think it's a great product. So I thought this question might come up today and I was driving to Raleigh. So I picked up the phone and I called about 20 of my LOs and I said, what are you spending money on? Right? I wrote this down while I was driving. So what they're spending money on is, honestly, it's events. I had events, partnerships, AI subscriptions, lunch and learns, charity, mutual charities, co-branding, open houses, broker opens, client appreciation, personal CRM, Canva, Redder, and community involvement. So our average LO closes around $18 million, which is triple the industry average. The majority of our top producers here get their business through events, whether it's a dog jog, sponsoring. We had an oyster roast, and so to your point, Mike, like a Rocket and a Redfin can't do that.
Right.
It's super local, and you don't even have to talk about interest rates. Come in, Mike. How's it going, man? How you kids doing? T-ball, let's grab some oysters, a couple beers. That's what people want. People want connectivity these days versus communication. So that is where the magic is at. And you're talking about creating accountability. It's almost, gamification's hot new word here. When you spend the money to put the event on, Last thing you want is nobody showing up to it. So you're dialing for dollars. Now you're advertising. And honestly, the action of doing it, whether anybody shows up or not, you probably get more from just the activity of having something to call about. And that's another part of it why the event is so powerful. It's a lot easier to call Michael up and invite him to go to Oysters versus saying, hey, do you got a deal for me?
Mhm.
What's in it for me? You know?
Do you find that when the originators, team leaders, branch managers, whatever, when they're making investments into marketing or events and things like that, and then after everything is said and done, where they funded loans and they've also made monthly expenditures, whether it's a broker making 150 basis points or a retail originator making whatever their origination is supposed to make, does it typically net out to about 65 bips, 75 bips, somewhere around there? You can say you have a high, but does it really end up netting across the board?
Yeah. I mean, that's how, I mean, I'm telling you, most of these, our number one originator, he closes between 80 and $100 million a year. And that was with a $370,000 average loan amount. And they do events. That's it. I mean, that's the only, I mean, they have CRMs and they're calling on realtors, but the mainstay is from events. So it's everything. And they're not spending, you know, they're making 100. If he's making 100 basis points, he ain't spending half of it on the event. So I think it's probably more like an 80-20 return, honestly, especially when you factor in you got something to call about.
It's the ultimate, I think, consistency to attendance, right? Or consistency to results game is events. And I think just like the podcast, when Mike and I started it, we started to prove that I think 97% of people quit after their 8th episode. Like, people are pretty good at the first 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that's the same way with events. How do you help them? How do you help other loan officers know about the other loan officers throwing events? Is that something where you guys help each other, or is it sort of siloed because you don't want people competing?
No, we share everything at our company. It's almost like we're almost like a NASCAR team. Like, we help everybody all through the week, and then on the weekend it's game time. We want you to be at your best. So these guys they'll come together and throw. We had a joint event probably 2 weeks ago around. Had appraisers come in and talk about what's going on because appraisals are changing with the market adapting. So they all came in, gave a class on that. They did a separate class on housing loans, bond loans. It's like 3 teams pulled together, had the person from, I think it was the state of South Carolina, come in and talk about the specialty housing loans that they have. So if you can get them to pull together and do it, it's better, right? They feed off. It's easier to hunt in a pack than it is by yourself.
Wow. Sure. How do your teams grow together? I mean, individually they work, but if they're going to collaborate together, how do they communicate with each other for them to grow as individuals, then as teams, and then as a company? How do you get them together to collaborate with each other so they can grow instead of growing? The definition of team is if you want to grow fast, go on your own. If you want to grow as a team, you bring everyone with you or something like that. How do you promote and foster that type of community within your own company so they can grow together, and then as a result increase their productivity and production as well?
For me, I have an advantage because our average LO has been here so long. These guys have worked together for a long, long time, so it's trust built over a period of time. But it comes with clear communication. And then this year, in my business plan was, how can I drive connectivity? So the company will put on specific events around, mostly trainings, guest speakers, and we'll bring them all together. And then after the speaker gets done, we'll say, hey, you guys have any ideas on that? And one will say, oh yeah, man, we need to, have a realtor open at this new brewery. Awesome. Hey, you know who else is really good at getting people to come to that is Christina. Maybe you should reach out to Christina. She can help you with the marketing. You've already got the contacts. She hates dealing with restaurants. As a leader, you kind of try to put the pieces together and connect them, right? I mean, I call it getting the right players on the field. You get the right players on the field, and then you get off the field. I mean, I'm not a player anymore. I just direct the traffic, let them go, and then maybe referee when I need to jump in and referee it.
As we wind down here, what message do you have for the next batch of 24-year-olds that maybe have less patience than when I was an originator, where, those first 3 years, I don't care if you're great on Instagram, it's tough getting people to trust, especially with the lifestyle they live. I mean, if we're being transparent, to trust to give tax returns, pay stubs before they mature. What hope is there that we're actually going to get a younger demographic versus the baby boomers work until they're 75 in our industry? Sorry, I guess I asked that in a way to not end this on a positive note. On a positive note, what would you say to those 24-year-olds to join this industry? In what do you see as the next seed to plant?
Here, I would say it's not an age thing. For me, what I see is there's a ton of opportunity in the mortgage game, and people say, "Well, it's harder than it's ever been." Man, every generation says it's harder than it's ever been. I was saying that when I was originating, right? It's not. It's just different. What I can tell you is I don't see the hustlers like I used to see the hustlers. They come to me with, and this is going to sound bad, but you're asking. I want work-life balance, but I want all the money now. It doesn't work that way. It just does not work that way. If you're really, really good at this game, you don't have a work-life balance. You figure out how to weave your work into your life. And that's the cold, hard truth, because nobody's going to pay you a lot of money for just, turning off the phone at 4:00. So the opportunity for me that I see and the people that are successful that I've noticed, they're working. They're just out there making it happen. We've got I'll call her out, Ashlyn Gift. She's with us. Ashlyn's younger. She's probably under the age of 35. She has 2 twins. I think they're probably, I guess, 3, 4-ish. I mean, they're moving and they're fast. So I know they're, under the age of 5. She closes like $50 million, runs the household. I mean, it's crazy. And people ask me, how does she do it? She works. Like, she's hustling. She never takes no for an answer. If she loses a deal to rate, she's on the phone following up with them. Hey, is your lender doing okay? Is everything going all right? If they drop the ball, she's got them like that. So Chris Steele, our biggest producer, this guy gets up at 4 a.m. and gets it going. And he's the last one to walk out of the office. There's plenty of opportunity out there if you're willing to work for it. But don't get lulled in this fake sense of security that you can have it all and not, work-life balance. It doesn't exist. I mean, not that I've seen. If anybody's got that genie bottle, pass it over here. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Oh, a mic'd up shout out to Ashlyn though, pulling up the sleeves, and that's what we want to hear, that they still exist. I guess the answer to the question is you emulate the Ashlyns of the world, and you'll be just fine.
Yes, plenty of opportunity out there. Tons of hustler. If you're hustling today, you got less people to hustle against, because not that many people want to do it. I don't know if they got soft after COVID or what happened, or maybe jaded. I don't know, but there's more room for hustlers than ever.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like somehow like the temperature of, maybe this is another bad mic analogy, but like the temperature of the pool water changed during COVID. And now everybody's so used to that they, jumping into the other, it's freezing. And that's what it always was before. It's not really that freezing. Just you're having trouble adapting back. All this work from home some people are having trouble with the family getting back out there, but it is a weeknight and weekend industry if you're in purchase business. So
1,000%. If you're not answering that phone, somebody else is. And I'll give another shout out. Rick Michael works for us. If you ask Rick, what does he do? He's like, when my phone rings, I answer it. 24 hours, 7 days a week, I answer the phone. Yeah.
I was at an event. It was a Todd Duncan event some number of years ago, and he talks to the audience and he makes them raise their hand and he says, "From now on," and he tells the originators that are there, "From now on, I own everything that I'm going to do in my origination career." And I think one of the things that I've seen younger originators not do is take ownership or accountability for other people's actions, meaning like processing issues or manufacturing issues. And they blame other people when they're like, well, if you would have just taken a better 1003, or if you would have just given the right expectations to your realtors, or if you would have just provided the expectations, because you were saying something for somebody else but not owning it on your own account. And I think the ownership of what you need to accomplish as an originator needs to be, we need to go back to old school and just own what we do. Whether we say, hey, we're going to have an event, then we need to get on the phone and make the calls. Or whether we're going to say, hey, I need to make 5 new appointments for not 5 new phone calls, but I need 5 appointments. So whether it takes 20 phone calls or 50 phone calls, I own it. And I think that's one of the things that you have done in your career. You didn't just say, well, da, da, da. You just owned it and said, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah, it's buying into a mortgage company in 2022 was not fun. That was not, but you take it and you keep going. I mean, there's nobody coming to save you. It doesn't work that way, especially in sales. I think one of the hardest things in sales is every morning when you get up, you look in the mirror. That is the only person you got. It is a lonely game, and when the week ends, you're starting all over from ground one. But here's the deal. I tell people this all the time. You're paid like a doctor. One of the guys I work with is, he always says, hey, you make doctor money, act like one, right? I mean, what else? That's one of the beauties of sales, that would be true for mortgages, selling tacos, or nuts and bolts. I mean, it's all the same.
Yeah, we don't do this podcast to be some, famous morning show. We really started it to let loan officers that maybe don't go to these conferences because they either don't know about it or they're so talented their company doesn't really want to send them to get recruited. But whatever that is, if you're a loan officer or you're a real estate agent saying maybe I should become a loan officer, we try to have this show so that you can meet the type of people that go to these conferences. And the reason they're asked to go to these conferences is they have some sort of success story. And so please use this, if you're listening, to at least mention it and try and reach out to our guests. And I would say, if you're asking for the right reasons, and you probably are here for the right reasons and still listening, if you are, John Overfelt is no different than anybody else that we bring on that will be there to help you get in and succeed. And so thank you, John, for joining us into the heart of mortgage innovation here on the Mic'd Up Show. And remember, to our listeners, every mortgage has a story, and we're here to help you write yours. Any final thoughts today, John, or any final messages you want to get out to those loyal listeners?
I'd say if you're still in the mortgage game and you've made it this far, keep going. I mean, nothing lasts forever, and you've made it through a hard time. I mean, you really have. It hasn't. It just, forget interest rates. Inventory is still a problem, and that is, honestly, it's probably your biggest problem. You just don't have enough deals. So if you made it through a hard time, keep going. It gets, like I said in the beginning, when I probably quit the mortgage industry 3 times in my head before it turned. And if you work hard enough, man, the stars start to align. You will get a lucky break, and something will shake loose for you. That's just, call it karma, call it whatever you want to. That's just kind of how life works. The harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yeah, call it luck is disguised in overalls and work boots, right? So
there you go. Yeah.
You enjoyed today's insights. Please subscribe, listeners. Share with your network. Repost it is one of our favorites. And connect with us on social media, specifically LinkedIn, YouTube. Subscribe would mean a lot. Until next time, keep pushing those boundaries and uncovering the stories that drive our industry forward.